All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the real estate market. We're talking about those agent fees that can be so confusing and, let's be honest, really expensive. There was this huge legal settlement that was supposed to change everything for homebuyers, but did it?
So this is the big question, right? It affects millions of people trying to buy or sell a home. This massive settlement was supposed to completely shake up the industry and, most importantly, bring down those commission fees. But the real question is, has anything actually changed?
Okay, so first things first, let's talk about what was supposed to happen. The whole idea behind the settlement with the National Association of Realtors, the NAR, was to give you, the consumer, more power. The goal was to break apart that old commission structure and put home buyers in the driver's seat to negotiate, hopefully saving them a ton of money. But, and this is a big but, a new mystery shopper report from the Consumer Policy Center just dropped, and it paints a very different picture. Researchers actually went undercover in 26 different cities, pretending to be home buyers, just to see what's really going on out there. And what they found? Well, it's pretty startling.
So, what's the big takeaway from the report? In a pretty shocking twist, it turns out that not only are the old ways of doing things still around, but in many cases, the fees that buyers' agents are asking for have actually gone up. Yeah, you heard that right, higher.
All right, let's follow the money here. The numbers these mystery shoppers collected, well, they tell a pretty consistent and fascinating story about what's really happening with commissions across the country. Okay, check this out. Even though consumer groups have been shouting from the rooftops to negotiate a flat dollar amount, a whopping 95% of agents still quoted their fee as a percentage of the home's final price. And that's the exact practice the settlement was trying to stop, because, it can incentivize agents to want a higher sale price.
And it gets even more interesting. Within that 95%, a really clear trend is popping up. Almost 2/3 of the agents they talk to, 64% to be exact, are now asking for a full 3% commission. And that's not just a random number. It points to a pretty big shift in the market.
And this chart right here, it just lays it all out so clearly. Back in 2022, you had about 40% of agents asking for that 3% fee. Fast forward to today, and that number has skyrocketed to 64%. So even with all these new rules that were supposed to create more competition, we're seeing more agents push for the top of the commission scale.
So this all leads to the big question, right? If there are new rules and everybody's more aware, why are these fees so stubbornly high? The report really digs into why the old system just won't seem to go away. Well, the report points to a few key culprits. First, you've got these really strong local agent cultures where rates are just strangely similar across the board. Second, some agents are still throwing around words like standard or usual rate, which is a major red flag for price fixing. Third, there's something called a risk premium. Agents might be asking for more money up front because they expect you to negotiate them down. And finally, there's a little bit of a fear factor being used, where buyers are told that if a seller isn't paying commission, well, they might not even get to see that home. A massive piece of this whole settlement was about these new mandatory buyer agency agreements. The idea was simple: create total transparency right from the start. But the reality on the ground? Oh, it's a total mess. The report found that enforcement is all over the place. Sometimes forms are being backdated or they're pushed on buyers way too late in the process, which completely defeats the purpose. And really, it all boils down to enforcement. This quote, which came directly from an agent talking to one of the undercover researchers, just says everything. No one's checking contracts to make sure they're signed. I mean, wow. If nobody's checking to see if the rules are being followed, are they even rules at all?
Okay, so what does all of this mean for you, the person trying to buy or sell a house in this new world? What's the bottom line here? It seems like that power the settlement promised consumers, well, it hasn't quite shown up yet. In fact, the people who wrote the report have a name for what's happening. They're calling them agent workarounds. These are basically all the little tactics and practices agents are using to keep the old commission system alive and well, even with the new regulations. They figured out how to work around the rules, and it's limiting the negotiation power everyone was supposed to get.
So for things to really change, the report's authors are pretty blunt. They argue it's time for the big guns, like the Department of Justice, to step back into the ring. They believe the industry's response just proves that more scrutiny and maybe even more legal action is what's needed to finally separate how buyers and sellers pay their agents.
And that leaves us right here with this one last really important question for the future of home buying.
the settlement was supposed to create a new standard of transparency and negotiation. But if the old habits are proving this hard to break, have we just swapped one set of unwritten rules for another? It really seems like the big revolution in real estate fees might not have arrived just yet.